Hey everyone, we're back for another week of Movie Mainline. Movie Mainline, it's here. Me, gregsrisavasdi, the Painted Bruce, aka Bruce Purkey. There's a reason why he's called the Painted Bruce this week. We're gonna get into it as well. We have Eric Holmes, our stalwart. I just wanted to say stalwart. You are a stalwart, Eric Holmes. You know what?
I don't know what that means.
It's stalwart means you're the steady Eddie. You're the steady guy. You're the rock.
Oh.
You're the rock of the thing.
Right.
We are missing Luis Lacau this week. He had stuff to do tonight. He actually really saved the day last week as the moderator because last week I had I'm gonna just say it right now. I had a little bit of, I thought I had COVID-19, but Eric Holmes, because you are the stalwart, you are a stalwart human being. You just told me via instant messenger that it's probably food poisoning, and guess what? It was only a 24-hour bout with food poisoning. I could not get out of bed for several hours. Have you guys ever had that before? Do you just
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I never knew that when you have food poisoning, when you try to get out of bed, there's a disorientating feeling that you feel like you might just drop, right?
Yeah. It's kind of the room's moving, but it's not moving, man.
But a lot of other stuff is moving, so you get to make up for it there.
So yeah, this is my idea of being a mostly I'm a 99% vegetarian, and it's just so funny. By not cooking an Impossible Burger the correct way, I got food poisoning. My COVID-19 test came out negative, so that was a good thing. Thank you guys so much for covering last week, which you guys might thought was over off the rails, but I think you guys did such a great job last week, sans me. So first off, how has last week been for you guys? Have you seen a lot of good movies within the last week? Eric Holmes, start off with you. Has it been a productive movie week for you?
Oh yeah. We got a bunch of movies and couple older ones, and catching up on the William Friedkin for our cinematic dumpster fire, the Finder film.
The cinematic celluloid dumpster trash fire, Painted Bruce BS artist find your film podcast.
Yeah. That has nothing to do with the quality of William Friedkin's movies, just so.
No, it does not.
I should plant that flag right now.
Listeners, if you can get that name and blazon it and send us, that'll be really good for our merch. Just copy and paste, because whatever name we just came up with is not very good for search engine optimization. But I think that will be the heart and soul of what us three are trying to do. The Painted Bruce. I may just call you the Painted Bruce till the end of my days. It's the last week for you as far as you watch a ton of movies. I would say you probably are the biggest movie watcher among all of us. So, maybe Eric. I don't know.
Eric's he's pretty thorough. He gets a lot in a week, I think. I mean, I usually get like 7 or 8 a week. I did do a miniseries this week too, so that's the whole thing that happens as well. So I'm not going to review it here, but I'll do another review of it somewhere.
Okay, cool. But so it's been a good week. You know what? I think we're gonna do a rewind, Bruce, on a movie. You know what? I'm giving you a little ish on it, but I was just so disappointed when we're gonna get to Eric, your rewind pick, but I was so disappointed when I really recommended that movie to you. I thought you were gonna really love it, so I feel really bad that again, you thought it was okay enough to watch. Before we do with Movie Mainline, each of us do. Overall, cumulatively, we do 10 to 12 movie picks for you guys. So by the end of the week, during the week, you can listen to some of our recommendations, get back to us and what you think about our recommendations. Were they any good? But before we get to our 10 to 12 movie picks for the week, we do a rewind segment where members of our foursome, we review movies, and then maybe one of us will catch what that other person reviewed the following week. Now, first off, we're going to start with you, Bruce Purkey. Do you have any rewinds at all this week?
I don't think I do this week. No, I'm good.
Okay. Good. Because Eric Holmes, can you lead us into what rewind did you see over the last, I think you've been saving it for the last couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, you got sick last week, so and I was going to do a thing, but I was like, this was Greg's movie. I can't in good conscience do a rewind of Greg's movie without Greg here. So I'm doing a rewind of Bad Company till the day. Yeah, it's a Robert Benton movie from 1972 with Jeff Bridges and a guy that looks a lot like Ryan Gosling, who is not Ryan Gosling. And I was all over this movie.
Yeah, co-stars Barry Brown. Barry Brown and Jeff Bridges is in it. And what did you specifically like about this movie, Eric, as far as the tone, the flavor of it?
Well, I mentioned, I guess I mentioned to you off air, but it had a Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer kind of feel to it. Stand By Me with the little flavor of Young Guns. If you're a fan of Stand By Me or Young Guns, I would say at the very least give this movie a shot, because it's got it's got some fun sort of adventure to it. I mean, it's definitely a Western, but that kind of Western adventure. You got the scamps. You got the screaming children.
That's sound effects for Bad Company. That's very authentic sound effects right there.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. They don't take apparently they don't take verbal threats very seriously, but that's fine.
But what I loved about Bad Company, okay, so Barry Brown plays Drew Dixon. Drew Dixon's this young 20-something. He does not want to be part of the war. His parents don't want him to be part of the war. It starts off, I think Bruce, you were saying, in a really interesting. It starts off with a bunch of soldiers or boys being carted off in a sort of a carriage, and they go from home to home, taking the men, the kids, or they're kids, the youths, to join. I guess the Civil War, right? We're assuming Civil War. Civil War.
Yeah, I assume they don't have enough recruits that'll actually join up. So they're like, we're going to take your able-bodied men and take them off to war.
Yeah, so Barry Brown, the late Barry Brown, who by the way committed suicide, he had an interesting career. Eric and you and I were talking about
that's how I knew he died at a young age. I didn't see how he died, but
committed suicide.
Sad.
I think around 79 or 80, around that time. But Barry Brown, he's the lead in Bad Company, even though it stars Jeff Bridges. So it centers on how Drew Dixon, played by Barry Brown, he escapes. He's a runaway. He deserts. He doesn't want to be part of the war, and he tries to head out and be safe. But he runs into a group of, like you said, I've never used the word scamps, Eric Holmes. Really interesting. Love that. Bruce, have you ever used scamps before in your dialogue?
I don't think so.
That's a great word. That's a great word, Eric Holmes. You just said in our other podcast.
I hope it's not racist. I don't think it is.
It's not racist. It's not. At least, I'm not going to throw a joke call back from a couple of episodes ago, but you are the least racist out of all of us.
Oh, don't say that. That means I'm the most racist out of
None of us are racist, folks. Not no one. We're all nice people. But what I really, as Bruce,
this already went off.
I'm not involved.
Bruce is just sighing because he realizes that you thought you went off the rails. I'm going to make it even worse this week. But what really worked for me was the camaraderie between Barry Brown and the Jeff Bridges character, Jake Rumsey. Jake Rumsey is one of the scamps who actually takes Drew Dixon in, and the whole movie, as Eric was saying, it's a little bit of a Stand By Me type of tough. Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer kind of thing. It's about how these buddies, they're friends or they might be enemies, and along the plains they meet so many different people, and you wonder whether these newfound friends are really going to backstab each other by the end of this Western.
I mean, that's kind of their bread and butter. Is they're all looking. Every one of them's looking out for themselves, and it's just kind of. I don't know. It's got a bit of that. What do you call that? The enemy, the devil you know, sort of thing. Yeah. Like, I know you're going to screw me over, but I know you, and I know how you're going to screw me over. So I'm pretty comfortable around you. And yeah, it's a fun movie. It gets really sad at certain points, and as you mentioned, the actor that plays the Big Lebowski is in it. Right. So it was a nice prequel to the Big Lebowski as well.
Yeah. So Bad Company, it's available via streaming on Amazon Prime Video. So you can check it out. I really loved it. Eric Holmes really loved it. And Bruce, would you sort of recommend Bad Company in all just aside?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's definitely an interesting and a little bit darker. I mean, you guys don't kind of bring that flavor, but there's definitely a darkness to it in certain parts too, I think. Kind of revisionist Western. I think I put it in that pile of those 70s revisionist Westerns is kind of what I said last time, like the Wild Bunch and all that kind of stuff that was going on.
And Mrs. Miller.
Yeah, where it's like it's kind of demystifying the go west young man idea, and I really appreciate that whole side of it all the way through. And my misgivings were mostly just it was mostly just the main character a little bit, and then the music didn't really work for me too much. But other than that, I mean, I loved the bandit guys that were the Big Lebowski dude was in, and those interactions were really good. And you don't really talk about it, but that whole band of bad guys that Big Lebowski's in, those are all guys you'll go like, I've seen that guy in this something. Wait, that guy's in something too.
John Savage.
Well, those are all like character actors. I'm talking about the other guys, the other bad guys.
Oh, right. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
All of those guys, you'll know them. They're from 70s, 80s, like movies. You'll have seen them in something, and you want to go back and see each of those guys. Like, who is that guy? So it's definitely worth watching for sure.
Yeah. And again, go ahead.
I also thought that I wanted to bring up the editing because it's got some really strange edits in the movie. Like, because it spans seems to span a long time, maybe just a month or two, possibly a couple of years. I'm not exactly sure, but the scene will get done and then it just stops and then bam, it's right onto the next scene. And I got to go choke some children real quick, so I'll be right back. But yeah, Bad Company is awesome.
Awesome. You're going to be back. That's going to be a Robert Benton edit right now as Eric Holmes leaves the scene. Speaking of which, before we get to you, Bruce, with your picks, I just want to mention this movie, Bad Company, 1972, co-written by Robert Benton and David Newman and directed by Robert Benton. Robert Benton has also directed Places in the Heart, Kramer versus Kramer.
Yep.
The underrated film, which our mutual friend Angie Clark loves. It's called Twilight, Paul Newman and Susan Sarandon. I don't know if you've seen that.
I don't know. I might have a million years ago.
Beautiful movie with James Garner in it, Reese Witherspoon's in it, and I really love what Robert. And he also did Billy Bathgate, which which stars Dustin Hoffman and Lauren Dean. And I remember really not liking it, but
Nicole Kidman. Is that right?
Yes, and I have a feeling that movie might have gotten short shrift when it was released, and I would love to see that.
Well, that was when there were so many gangster movies, and you got so many gangster movies coming out. It's kind of hard sometimes to like come out of the fray, It was kind of like when they were making all those Vietnam War movies, and in certain movies would get lost in that fray, And then you go back and watch some of them now, and you're like, oh, that movie is actually really good. I mean, speaking to that, Casualties of War, which you love. A lot of people forget Casualties of War because, I mean, it was after all these heralded, Vietnam War movies. So for sure.
Yeah, so Bad Company, if you want to take a deeper dive on Robert Benton, we just mentioned a whole bunch of his films. Mentioning a whole bunch of films, Bruce Purkey, let's start off with our picks. What are a couple of your picks right off the bat?
Well, we should. We always have to start out with The Painted Bird, don't we? I mean, how can we not?
Is that Bruce Purkey's pick of the year?
I will hit mute right now, and you two duke this one out.
No, I think we have a kind disagreement on this one.
Totally
a respectful disagreement on this one. So, what is The Painted Bird? And just chime in when you want to, Greg, because you have as much information about it as I do. It's by director, I don't know how to say his name, Vadab Marhoul?
Vaclav Marhoul, yeah. Vaclav Marhoul, yeah.
And it is basically an epic end of World War II story, basically about a young boy who very quickly is set adrift, kind of in the countryside, somewhere in the Eastern Bloc. So because you've got Russian soldiers in various scenes, you've got German soldiers in various scenes. At the very beginning, he's in his aunt, I believe. He's staying with his aunt, who is an elderly woman. She's supposed to keep him safe. His parents kind of have left him there to keep him safe. And that doesn't work out so well because very quickly she passes away. and he's on his own. And that is kind of the kickoff to this movie. Now, you know a little more about the book it's based on, which is a very notorious book. Do you want to say a little bit about, is it Jerzy Kosinski?
Jerzy Kosinski.
Yeah.
It's based on the novel by Jerzy Kosinski. And the reason why I say novel is because Kosinski, he also was popular for that book, Being There, right? So Being There, he was known for that, obviously a classic film directed by Hal Ashby and starring Peter Sellers. But this movie, this book, The Painted Bird, had a lot of controversy because he claimed it was based on his own life, where ultimately the truth came out and it was maybe a composite of other people, and he ended up retracting that it was based on his own experiences. So what's interesting is this director, Vaclav Marhul, we're butchering the name. Correct. I thought it was a courageous act to actually take a controversial book and make it and say, hey, you know what, this is worth telling, no matter the veracity of the story or not. Right. It's still, he found it to be worth the pain, worth the shooting on 35 millimeter, black and white.
Right. I thought beautiful movie.
Beautiful movie. There are images that will stay with you. That will stay with me. You were talking about the aunt. There's a sequence with when he discovers what happens to her aunt, and everything that happens after that, you will remember those scenes. Unfortunately, I think, Bruce, you can speak to this. One of the things I don't even know if Eric Holmes is going to like this, The Painted Bird, when he sees it. I think this is close to a masterpiece for me, but I don't know if I can really recommend it to most people because of rape.
Yeah.
Bestiality.
Sure.
Pedophilia.
Mm-hmm. Check.
And I'm just the way that Bruce is saying this, Bruce,
these are a few of my favorite things.
right. Thanks for the Von Trapp songs. But yeah, it's just scraping the surface, right, Bruce? It's unrelenting.
Yeah, and that's kind of the basic format of this movie is. So I kind of would talk about it. I think in my YouTube review, I kind of mentioned there's two types of things that this kind of falls into. It falls into that kind of movie where it's like a character kind of traveling through a bunch of different events. They're kind of the cipher in a sense. Like they're there to witness all these different things, but they're not really a participant so much.
Yeah.
And then it also is in kind of that weird subgenre, which is like seeing the horrors of war through the eyes of a kid, through the eyes of a child, which is kind of a thing that's been done. Now, I don't know if either of you have seen this, but I would highly recommend Come and See.
Yes.
Come and See, which is from, I would say, the late 80s, 87, 88, which I believe has got a Criterion release at this point. I have it. I got it in the mail. Yeah, very similar subject matter, but to me, it works more than this movie. And this is the reason this movie doesn't work for me. Okay. And I mentioned this before. Shocking movies, shocking content. I'm not against that. I can totally go with shocking content. And sometimes there's two different approaches, right? So in a horror movie, you have shocking content, and it's kind of meant to be over the top, and it's meant to be unrealistic, and you're meant to just take it as this kind of roller coaster ride a lot of times, sure. Right? The other side is you got shocking content in something like Irreversible or Martyrs or Schindler's List. And they all have shocking content, and it's supposed to shock you, but there's kind of a moral to it, or there is definitely a reason for it. It's not reasonless. This one has a weird, for me at least, and I know it doesn't work for you this way, for me it has a really weird balancing act that I don't think it quite does. And I think it has very almost horror movie level violence and shocks that are almost to the unrealistic level in a movie that's supposed to be realistically teaching you about the horrors of war. So it kind of, to me, ends up being this really, it tears at your senses of like, why, and in my review, notoriously.
I know where you're going. Okay, so this is not a spoiler. So, Eric, the Painted Bird, the reason why it's called the Painted Bird is because it's a theme.
You paint a bird, it gets attacked and falls.
Yeah.
Yes. You paint the bird. There's one person who I guess he sells birds, or he collects birds. He sells them, and he tries to paint one of the birds, paints it white, puts them up in the sky to free him. throws them up in the air to free him. And there's a whole flock of birds just flying up there. There's not a spoiler. The bird goes up there, gets attacked. You see the attack up in the sky, and then you see the bird drop. So, Bruce, to your point, could you have actually made that sequence tactful in the sense that you see the bird get attacked, you see the bird drop,
Sure.
but do you need to see, I think to your point, do you need to see the bird in the hand of the boy? That's the main character.
No, that whole sequence could be in a super effective movie. That sequence as it is. The problem is it's the cumulative effect. So in this movie, like I even wrote a note as I was watching the movie, I said, you see an animal, you're probably going to see something horrible happen to this animal.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
In the whole movie. And pretty much you could say he encounters somebody, they're going to be horrible or something horrible is going to happen to them or both. And it is almost universal. And there's about 8 to 10 different sequences in this. It's like 3 hours long. Each sequence is somewhere between, 15, 10 minutes each, something like that. And some of them are good. Some of them really work. And some of them are like, well, that was kind of like a horror movie. Or, so he meets this person. Okay. Oh, and we're going to get a goat's head. Oh, and the goat's head's going to, and I'm once again, like, what am I spoiling? Who knows? There's a character that gets drawn to his death in a really ridiculous, almost horror movie way. In a hole in a thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Eric Holmes, here's a perfect picture. When the sweetest human being in this movie, the sweetest human being is Harvey freaking Keitel.
True.
I'm not kidding. Then you know you've got a movie. You've got a movie that will appeal to some crazy people like me and probably the more sane folks. I wouldn't be surprised if people dipped out within the first 5 minutes of this film.
They're going to dip out for different reasons than I do. A lot of people are going to dip out because it's shocking. I hate this. I don't want to see this kind of thing. It bothers my senses. I go out of it because I think that the tone is just, and the tone and approach is just wrong for the kind of movie it is. It's too gratuitous. Like it's gratuitous to the point of almost being ridiculous. And I think I pointed out the scene. And once again, you can't really spoil it. It's bad scene after bad scene after bad scene. None of them really, there is a plot to the movie. There is a arc that the child goes on. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's where I get bad about it. But the scene I talked about in my review, you have a guy who's jealous about another guy. And what does he do? Oh, he attacks him? Sure. But not only does he attack him, he scoops his eyes out with a spoon. Okay.
As you do.
As you do in a serious, shocking, realistic movie? Oh, but the eyeballs are going to be on the ground to be licked out by the cat. Well, our hero crawls towards it in the foreground.
I disagree. I disagree with you, Bruce. The
cat was comforting the lonely eyeballs that were afraid and they were away from their home.
The eyeball scooping with a spoon was very tactful. I mean, with a more exploitative film, they would have used a fork, right?
There is another scene in here, which I think it was cut just so that it wasn't illegal and that it wasn't literally abuse of the child actor in this movie, but it gets very close. Yeah. And there's just stuff like that in here. And I mean, there's a scene where...
Eric, are you more enticed to see this movie after this conversation?
Honestly, the name "The Painted Bird" was, and then the fact that it was black and white. Like I just saw it and I was like, that looks like something that was kind of a chore to get through. And then I heard Bruce's review on Russellmeyer, which you can find on YouTube. And the more he was talking about it, the more I was like, I think I want to see this movie.
I'm going to be honest. If I would have heard my review, I still would go watch this movie because that's the kind of weirdo I am. I have to go see what this is. But afterwards, I probably would have still been pissed off by it, but I would still go see it. So, judge for yourself.
Having not seen the movie yet, one question for Bruce. You talk about the gratuitous violence in it. Mm-hmm. And I know on your Russellmeyer thing, we talked about August Underground.
Yeah.
Is that like, well, what's the difference between? Not, I guess you wouldn't call August Underground a good movie, but
I think it's what it's pretending to be. right? August Underground doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it is. It's like, hey, I'm a fucked up movie. I'm really fucked up. I'm going to show you something really fucked up, and you're going to like be appalled by this, right? That's its point. This point of this movie is like, hey, I'm going to show you something really serious about the world that you need to understand, and you're going to watch it through the eyes of a child. Let's go and take this journey and discover the horrors of life. And as you do it, to me, it's so over the top, and it's so one after another, that it almost becomes comically absurd. That first of all, that the kid even goes through this. I mean, he would be broken mentally.
Would you call it close to go ahead.
I get that, but now I got a question for Greg. And me and you were talking on the phone the other day, and you were telling me how much of an idiot Bruce was for not understanding the genius. So what?
Under the bus,
Eric. Please keep that secret. We're doing another podcast called "Find Your Film Celluloid Trash Fire." Please keep that secret.
And the third one called "Bruce is an Idiot." Let's talk about why.
All right. So just to get serious here for a second, Greg. Why is Bruce an idiot and doesn't quite understand the genius of this movie?
I'm going to flip that script. I think into Bruce's point, I'm glad that he came out with that review. It's all joking aside. I called him a fight. I called him. You want to say fight? I called him a BS artist for the last couple of days because he used the term BS artist in the YouTube on Rustomeyer, RUSTOMIRE.
That's
folks.
right.
Check him out. He has over 1,000 subscribers. He does a lot of really cool movie reviews. Rustomeyer, Bruce Purkey, but he has. I can't really defend my love for the movie, to be honest. I thought the ending of the movie is about the boy. He doesn't have a name. It's about supposedly a boy trying to find his identity throughout this carnage, throughout this tragedy. And Bruce made some salient points, valid points about it should have been shot a certain way. Again, Brian De Palma is my favorite filmmaker. I do have a soft spot when sometimes people go a little bit off the rails. This movie does, I think, go off the rails. And to be honest, they showed a little too much. It was too much, but I still praise the movie. And maybe I should be put to task for that. But it's just my aesthetic. I understand it shouldn't really fit. It should not really fit. It's like if Brian De Palma, one of my favorite films of his was, I say it's Raising Cain, but to be honest, it's probably Casualties of War. It's like if Brian De Palma turned Casualties of War into a torture porn film about Vietnam, and
it's like if Sam Raimi directed Schindler's List.
Dude, he keeps selling me this movie. Like everything you say about it just makes me want to watch it more.
We're going to have comments on our podcast. It's only going to be Bruce Purkey and Luis Lacau now. No ericholmes and gregsrisavasdi. Get their taste out of here. Speaking of taste.
You do not eat this dish. This is the most disgusting thing ever. Wow, what does it taste like, Bruce? It tastes like sweet tarts dipped in ranch sauce. That sounds awesome. No, I was wrong. It doesn't taste like that. It tastes like a medium rare steak with mushrooms and onions on it. Yeah, that sounds awesome.
You know what? Speaking of things that taste good, Eric Holmes, what tastes good as far as cinema for you this week? A couple of things for our listeners. Obviously, The Painted Bird is a little bit of a wash because I'm glad that we talked about it, so you listeners can go 50-50 on whether you want to see The Painted Bird. But for you, Eric, what you got?
Well, I saw a movie from 1947 directed by Jules Dassin called The Brute Force. Screenplay by Richard Brooks.
Jules Dassin. I'm giving you the correct pronunciation. Jules Dassin.
Jules Dassin.
Jules Dassin. Mm-hmm. Jules Dassin. I'm doing that because that's the only name I can pronounce, but I've constantly heard the word Dassin. So Dassin. But cool. Brute Force.
Yeah, it's starring Burt Lancaster. It's a prison movie, and it's a prison escape movie. And this, Jules Dassin obviously directed one of my favorite movies, Rafifi.
I apologize.
Oh yeah, Rafifi.
By far the greatest heist movie ever. And in a way, this is kind of a heist movie too, because they're trying to break out of prison, and it's it's got a lot of similar aesthetics to Shawshank Redemption. So if you like the Shawshank Redemption, and you also like kind of Startup, the movie Startup, not Startup, Startup.
Startup with Startup. I remember Startup. I haven't seen that with Jack O'Connell, I believe. Yeah.
In fact, I mean, it's 1947. It's probably a really early prison movie, so a lot of stuff in this movie. I would have to guess that this movie inspired any prison movie that came after it. Definitely heist movies as well, because there's a big heist element to it. Because they're the whole point of the movie is them setting up the breakout, and then of course things go wrong and the breakout goes wrong. Also, what they do really neat in this is as they're in prison, they'll cut the flashbacks. So you'll get to know the characters, and then you get to see flashbacks of why they're in there to begin with. And some of them are in there because they deserve to be. Others are victims of circumstance. Others are, just shouldn't be in there to begin with. And so by the time you get to the breakout at the end, when everything just turns to hell, you know where all these characters are coming for, or where they're all coming from, and it really raises the stakes. And they got not the warden, but the what would you call the guy that goes around and keeps everyone in prison in line? I forget the actor's name. He would be the scary guy in Shawshank Redemption. The guy from
yeah, I know you mean. It's like the head guard, but I don't forget their names are. But yeah.
Guard, yeah.
So the guy that character in Brute Force, he's really similar to Percy from Green Mile. Wow. Like he almost looks like him. He almost acts like him, except he's kind of a snake in this, but he's also a little more. He's got his head on a little straighter than Percy does in Green Mile. But I would imagine that Frank Darabont saw Brute Force more than once, because Shawshank.
Probably Stephen King Mile. Too, right? Probably Stephen King saw.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's a really good prison movie. It's a really good like prison escape movie. And much like Rafifi, I would recommend anyone watch this.
Where can they get it? Fantastic. How did you get it, Eric?
I think it's on Criterion. It's on YouTube. I rented it on Amazon because I wanted the. I saw they had a HD version, and so I got that, and it looked like the regular version, so I wouldn't even bother.
Yeah,
with the
it's
HD
hard sometimes
version.
those old ones.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like, from what you're describing, I haven't seen it, but I think I'd like to see it. It sounds to me like I can see those similarities with Rafifi, because a big part of Rafifi that's cool is the assembly of the team and like getting to know all those members of the team. And the heist itself is super cool, and the aftermath and all that. But that team is really awesome in Rafifi.
Well, also like with Rafifi, with Rafifi, they break down what it is they're doing. They break down how normally it's just, we got to break through the security system,
right?
The effervescent security system that we just know there's a security. But with Rafifi, you know what the security system is, how it works, how they cannot get around it, and then now you get to see how they work their way around it. Brute Force does a similar thing, not so much with the security system, but
with like the guards probably, and the
with the guards, the bird's nest, the
lighting and all that probably going by,
just the geography of the prison itself. Like it not only does it set up the characters well, so you care about them, it also sets up the prison well, so when they're breaking out, where they need to be, where everything is, and it's just really good. It's this way with pretty much anything action related.
Yeah,
you want to set up your geography as well as you set up your characters. It's just as important, but I don't think a lot of filmmakers really care about that. And Jules Dassin,
Jules Dassin.
Jules Dassin, between this and Rafifi, he does a wonderful job of that, and it pays off because you're just like on the edge of your seat. And I mean, this is a 1947 black and white movie. I'm just like, oh, what's going on?
I saw Brute Force a year and a half ago. I think I talked about it with Anderson on CinemAddicts. And the thing I remember it being, you were saying it was very ahead of its time because, again, it probably influenced a lot of these prison films. And what I loved about it is even though it told the backstory of these prisoners, by the time you get to the ending and there is an escape happening, an attempted escape, everything becomes unsentimental. You're either gonna get out. Most likely, there's a good chance if odds are against you. And what happens if you try to break out? You're gonna probably die. So there's no sugarcoating it. And Jules Dassin, we were talking about Billy Friedkin, how he's one of those filmmakers who, when he enters a room, he doesn't slink. I have a feeling Jules Dassin is one of those type of the narrative behind Brute Force is brutal. It's a very muscular narrative, and when you have, Burt Lancaster is the lead in this movie, but in all fairness, love Lancaster, love all his films. I was on a Burt Lancaster kick several months ago. He's the main character, but really the movie itself, it feels like it's more of an ensemble because, like Eric was saying, you get to know all these prisoners, and by the end, when things happen, you go, "Oh, I hope this person doesn't." Oh, well, there goes that. And then but then the action keeps on moving on. He doesn't wait for you to sentimentalize the situation. And that's what I love about Brute Force.
Well, also with Shawshank Redemption, Tim Robbins is the star of the movie.
Yeah.
But you also got Morgan Freeman, you got Brooks, you got
Sadler.
You have the main character,
Whitmore.
but it's for all intents and purposes an ensemble. And it's the same deal with this.
Yeah. So Brute Force, Jules Dassin, 1947, headlined by Burt Lancaster and a bunch of memorable people. Yeah, the prison guard was really good in Brute Force. What else you got, Bruce? What's your next pick?
I've got one more that might be terrible for people, but then I got one really good one to end it with. I've got the now streaming on Amazon Prime Vivarium, which has been out for a few months now, and it's kind of been on my radar. It's officially 2019 release, but for all intents and purposes, for the vast population, it's 2020. Directed by Lorcan Finnegan. He did his first feature was Without Name, which I have seen, it's pretty good, but it's definitely a first feature. It's kind of flawed. This one's different too. He made a short that's really good called Foxes. I would look for Lorcan Finnegan's short Foxes. It's really awesome. But this is starring Imogen Poots as Gemma and Jesse Eisenberg as Tom. Now, you've probably seen at least something from Vivarium. You can tell it's kind of a Twilight Zone-ish sort of a thing, maybe, or it's kind of a Black Mirror sort of thing. The thing I was surprised about is how the flavor this movie actually ends up having. So basic concept is this. Young couple, they're looking to start a new life. They are going around house hunting, looking at houses and whatever. They come across a weird little development called Yonder. They go and talk to the guy kind of at the head office that will take them to show them the house. And he takes them to show them the house, and all the houses look identical. Same color, same shape, same yard, same everything. Very artificial looking. And most of you have probably seen some promotional stuff from this, and you've seen that. They go there to check it out, and the guy that was showing them around leaves without them knowing he leaves, and now they're stuck in Yonder, seemingly never to get out of Yonder. They don't know. They drive around.
That's a great premise.
It all looks the same.
That sounds. And Twilight Zone is my favorite.
He's already told them this is their house. This is perfect for them. All this stuff. They there's little things like they go upstairs when he's showing them around the house, and there's a nursery. And they haven't really talked about having a kid yet, but there's a nursery, and it's a boys' nursery. So they're like, why would you pick a boys' nursery? And it's like, this is the perfect house for you, whatever. So,
wow.
So anyway, they're there in this neighborhood, right? And a couple of things that are really good about it. The production is amazing. It looks super artificial, super weird, and like fake. It's like suburban hell to the nth degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
The clouds are these perfect little like puffball clouds that are like seemingly like stuck in the sky. They can travel all around the neighborhood, and they always end up back in front of the same house, even because this number on the house is the same. And that's kind of the kickoff point. And the thing and the sound design also is really cool. Like once they're in this neighborhood, the sound is different. And you'll notice if you're listening to it, I always watch my movies at home, at least with headphones, because I love to hear the stereo and hear the sounds. And the sound is different. It's like, it's weirdly compressed and artificial, and the tone of everything is also kind of odd. But what you can't quite get is they're trapped in this environment, and it takes it, and it turns this concept up and up and up to the point that the characters are being tortured by this situation they're in, and it is so uncomfortable and so odd and so off-putting that as a viewer, you are basically tortured by this movie. So this is not a movie I could definitely recommend to the average person, but there is some stuff in here that is really, it's very, very, very unusual and very off-putting and very grating. There's a character that gets introduced into their lives that is, I don't want to spoil it, because when you see it happen, you'll be like, oh, that's weird. How's that going to go? And, there's questions throughout. Is this a social experiment? Are they in an alternate dimension? Are aliens doing this? Like, what's happening? Were
you satisfied by the wrap-up overall, the way because it has a great premise, and you're saying a lot of it is grating. So I'm thinking, as someone who hasn't seen it, that maybe it could, if it wraps it up in a very powerful fashion, it might be worth all this grading stuff.
It's one of those movies that I feel like I respect it for going as hard in the direction it went as it did. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's something I wanted to go and experience again, but I begrudgingly respect the intensity of the weirdness that it presented. And I think it will gain a very strong cult following for that, like kind of purity of vision. Like it could have been just a simple Twilight Zone episode, but it really takes the uncomfortable weirdness to the next level. It's not one that I could recommend to the average person, but if that sounded interesting to you and you can kind of go down those really twisty, dark, like almost surrealistic level of stuff, then you might find some interest here. It's one of those, though, if you recommend it to somebody, they might hate you for recommending it. So Vivarium now streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Yep. You were saying Eisenberg, right? And Poots? Yeah, and they're both great. Okay. And it kind of hinges on, part of it hinges on the fact that Eisenberg is very divisive for people as an actor, right? A lot of people kind of hate him, but a lot of people kind of don't, right? A lot of people don't like him. They think he's kind of like overly nerdish and overly mannered and overly like and they kind of play on that, and they kind of ramp that up a little bit too. So they definitely, it's interesting. It's an interesting movie, but I would but no one hates Imogen Poots, though. True. They don't. And if you do, you're wrong, because she's awesome. And I don't think you do in this movie. I think I can't even tell you. There's I would tentatively recommend it to certain people. You could hate her character if she played a character that was an asshole, but I mean, just her as an actor. I've never seen anything she was bad in. Oh no, she's the mama bird in this one. She's not bad. Yeah. So this is a 3.5 star kind of. Yeah. 3.5 to 4, if you can go with the vibe, the super uncomfortable vibe. I think you could get a 4-star rating on it. I don't think it's super satisfying, so I don't think I could very rarely see anyone getting a 5-star rating. But I think that the level of uncomfortable vibes it goes for is respectable. It's respectful. I'm not using the right words on those, so sorry about that. Yeah, for example, I saw a quick little clip of Luis and Naomi talking about this movie because they both saw it. Yeah. She hated it and he loved it. So I don't know. So there you go. I would think that would be a pretty common experience with two people watching it together. It's Luis Lacau and Naomi, I got just said or something. And they do and they do Midnight Movie Nerds, right? Midnight Movie Nerds. Yeah. I think that's what they do. Okay, so that's Vivarium, Amazon Prime Video. Eric Holmes, what other interesting thing you got
What else you got down the pike for us?
I saw a documentary about the making of the greatest movie that was ever been made. And this is called Gremlins, A Puppet Story with Chris Walas.
Yes.
Chris Walas is the guy that built all the Gremlins and Gizmo, the Mogwai. What would you call that? The special effects maker guy, I guess. Yeah. And it's basically just Chris Walas recounting his time making Gremlins from mostly just pre-production towards production, because obviously during editing, once they get done shooting, his job's over. But you get to see him kind of going over the story, talking about going over the storyboards, thinking to himself, oh man. It was like, first of all, he gets hired on, kind of, because Gremlins hasn't even been greenlit, because the whole backstory of the movie to begin with was Chris Columbus wrote this B-movie script that just somehow made it, became a big Hollywood thing, probably because Steven Spielberg was involved. Right. So he's looking at the script, and it's like, all right, this is. They're like, can you do this? He's like, oh, absolutely. And then he goes home. He's like, how the fuck? What did I get myself into? And then they show VHS. It's all just a bunch of VHS clips and pictures, a bunch of storyboards and whatnot. And so you get to see how the Gremlins went from just a concept to kind of a half-assed looking puppet to kind of a sort of better looking puppet to eventually they get to what you see in the movie now. And I think it's a really good illustration on what it's like to I mentioned this about writing before. Your first draft is not supposed to be the masterpiece. The first draft is supposed to be the foundation, the bones of what you're doing. And that's very much what this is. Of course, he didn't know that at the time. He thought he was just constantly failing. But then what you get out of it at the end, he was just kind of, he was inventing, he was essentially inventing what he was making, because a lot of the technology didn't exist yet. He had to invent that. A lot of the tricks they were using, he wouldn't have learned in film school because they never did that yet. And so he's constantly like just second guessing himself and beating himself up. And then at the end of the day, I mean, I guess as a spoiler, but it's kind of what the whole documentary is about. Who's the Dick Smith? Is that right?
Dick Smith did The Exorcist.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So Chris Walas talked about when he was talking with Dick Smith after Gremlins came out, and then Dick Smith was like, "Hey, it looked really good," and he's like, yeah, to tell you the truth, I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I just made it up as I went along. And Dick Smith says, yeah, that's what we do.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, right. I was putting all this pressure on myself for not knowing how to invent this thing right. It's just really, it's a really good, good documentary on what it's like to be a creative person and what it's like to create something. And I mean, look, he created some of the greatest special effects in the greatest movie ever made, and he thought the whole time he was failing, even to the point after it was done. It's like, I just got away with murder because no one knows what a fraud I am. Meanwhile, what he doesn't realize is that, you push your art form forward. You did it, and it was really inspiring to watch. And if you have if anyone has ever wanted to get into special effects or just likes creating stuff in general, this is a really good documentary to watch.
Okay, cool. So
is it true that Greg has not seen Gremlins? Is that true? Or have you seen Gremlins?
Well, wait, Bruce, you have a couple more picks this episode, right? I'm
just checking a fact here.
This is a little bit of a listeners for Movie Mainline, just a couple of things. I have promised Eric Holmes for at least several years to watch The Scalp Hunters. This goes back 6 years.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
The Scalp Hunters. He sent me a DVD of The Scalp Hunters 5-6 years ago. I still have it. I have not seen The Scalp Hunters, even though I'm a fan of what was that?
Burt Lancaster,
Yeah,
Ozzie Davis, Telly Savalas.
Yeah, I still have not seen it. Okay, even when I was in my huge Burt Lancaster kick, I have not seen Rififi. These are the three movies and then I have not seen Gremlins, even though I've interviewed Joe Dante. So that's horrible. And then as Bruce shakes his head, Bruce knows the very dark truth. Number one dark truth is I love The Painted Bird. He will never let me forgive me for that. Number two is I still haven't seen Dario Argento's Suspiria. Right,
but you
We're
love
going to change
Hardline.
that soon.
But you love Hardline and Scott Adkins, so
Yeah, that's
right.
You know.
Right, Hardline and Scott Adkins.
Guys, we're all friends here. We got to look at the positive things in
True.
life. Let's not talk about what Greg did or didn't do. Let's talk about what he did do.
Whatever I do, it's all a
What
legacy.
he did do was he talked shit on Bruce because he doesn't understand the genius of The Painted Bird.
You're putting in seeds. You know what? These are legacy of lies, Eric Holmes, that will live on. And we may have to talk about these legacy of lies that you're throwing at us next week on either Movie Mainline or Find Your Film podcast, which we just started as well. So where do these lies reside?
I'm going to be a debt collector after I'm done with you.
Wow, I threw it. And you've heard the interview with Atkins, Eric Holmes. You know I had to throw in that debt collector question at the end, man. I had to throw it in. I hope they do another debt collectors.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So, Bruce, what do you have? You have. I'm sure this one is going to be a really good pick, right? As far as you're all aboard, you're all on board with this one.
Oh yeah, I'm all on board with this one. Although it's not things that probably most everyone has already seen, but I guess to me, I would like to bring once in a while, like I think all of us have this experience. Greg, you might have this experience too, where there's a movie that you've been meaning to see for a while and everyone else has seen it, but you haven't seen it.
Like Gremlins.
Yeah, like Gremlins. So I am bringing today Moonlight. I finally got to see Moonlight. And this is because recently I had a long discussion with William Lindis from Movie Bears podcast, and during our conversation, Moonlight came up as one of his favorite movies of all time, and I'm like, I haven't seen Moonlight. I need to see Moonlight. So that was kind of the promise I gave to him. I keep my promises. I don't know about Greg, but
I don't. Before we get to this, let me just about the Movie Bears podcast and William Lindis. You're talking about it. You've done work with him too with In Fabric, right? And you have him on your channel too with the Movie Mainline stuff, talking about movies. So William Lindis, like Eric Holmes, I listened to last week's episode. You're saying William Lindis is kind of like the fifth member of this whole shebang thing, but I always get when we're part of this whole CinemAddicts Facebook group. I love it whenever I mention, oh, by the way, I saw this movie that's really cool. Whenever I post it, I think I'm scooping the entire group because I see movies a couple weeks in advance. And William will just throw in, oh yeah, you know what, Greg? He says it's in the nicest way. Yeah, I saw this at this fest or Essex, one of this fests like a year and a half ago. I'm glad you're finally getting around to it. And I'm just like, wow, he sees basically
everything.
William sees everything, and not only that, he scoops a lot of people when it comes to watching movies. So, Movie Bears podcast, check that out, William Lindis, love him. So, Bruce, go ahead.
Moonlight's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, like I hadn't seen it, go see it. It freaking won 1 million awards. It's a beautiful movie from 2016. It's on Netflix, easy to get to. Barry Jenkins, who of course is the director, has gone on to do If Beale Street Could Talk. But Moonlight, for anyone who doesn't know what Moonlight's about, it is about a character in 3 stages of his young life. And of course, he is dealing with the understanding that he is a gay man, but it's a lot more than that. So for those of you who haven't seen it, it's basically 3 segments, 3 actors. First is when he's a little boy, and he actually goes by the name Little, and they call that section Little. And then there's a section where it's called Chiron, which is his given name, and that's kind of his, I want to say he's about 15-ish in that period of the segment. And each of these segments, it's not like a long expanse of that portion of his life. It's like a snapshot. It's like just a few moments in that time in his life. And then the last section is Black, which becomes his nickname or his kind of, what he goes by in the last section, which at that point he's, I think, in his mid-20s to maybe early 30s. It's kind of hard to judge, probably somewhere in that range. And it's stunning filmmaking. I mean, it's a beautiful look at somebody in a really tough area of Miami, kind of living in like drug infested. And there's just, Mahershala Ali, of course, is, I think he won an Academy Award for supporting actor for this role. He's a drug dealer in the neighborhood who kind of shows him kindness and kind of sort of takes him in, but not really, but kind of is the first one to sort of, treat him
like a human being. Basically.
Yeah, treat him as not like a kid to run after and to pick on. And it's very interesting to watch the transformation of the character from super meek, like almost not able to talk. He's almost silent in a good chunk of this movie, even at the end. But to see him go from there to a much different sort of character by the end. But I will have to point out, and I'm sure this has been pointed out by many, the actor Trevante Rhodes, who plays the oldest version of this character, there's moments where he has to revert and kind of act and portray the younger version of the character as an older person. And the transformation he's able to do in a real subtle way is pretty remarkable, I thought. Yeah. It's quite amazing. And it's just a quiet movie, a beautiful movie. I mean, it's just about the human condition, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful
I'm just
movie.
glad that movie got made and got Best Picture, and it's just a special year. I was late on the train with like you. I was like, oh, it got so much acclaim, and I'm sure I was trying to be a naysayer, but I ultimately just watched it, and Barry Jenkins, he builds this cinematic world. He knows how to frame. The compositions are great, but it's a very personal and, like you said, a quiet story, and it's very powerful without being maudlin or cheesy.
It's not preachy, but it's also, there's a romantic. It's a weird romantic air to it, and you know what I mean.
Oh my God, you really feel
it's
that
willing
tension?
to go. It's willing to go full romance, but in a way that's very earned by the time you get to it.
Oh my gosh, Eric, have you seen Moonlight? Your thoughts on?
I have. So this and La La Land will be linked together forever. Not only just because of the Oscar thing, but at least for me, it was like all the online bullshit around both the movies. Like the movies are pitted against each other as if life of everything depends on it. That's like the worst of like any, not of anything, but just like movie stuff in general.
Yeah,
like I love talking about movies, but like when it devolves into that fucking frankly bullshit, I hate it.
Yeah.
Luckily for La La Land, I saw La La Land before all that happened. But Moonlight didn't play anywhere near me until after all that shit happened. So when I saw Moonlight, it was just like, I was just kind of just soured on the whole thing. And so it didn't really grab me at all. And I think probably, to be fair to the movie, I should probably check it out again now that it's, that's ancient history now. But yeah, at the time I remember watching Moonlight and just being like, I don't see what the big deal is. And then I just I didn't really give it another shot after that, although I probably should.
Yeah, to me, I think the time was good because I can kind of, like you said, I can kind of come back to it. And I almost came back to it as like a fresh movie. I knew what it was in a sense, but I didn't, the hype was gone away. And I was just like, you know what? I have never watched this movie. So I think coming into it that way did really help because I was able to just go like, this is a cool little quiet movie. I don't care what it won. It's just this cool little human story. So I loved it.
And I think that's also like why I just don't like musicals in general, but I did like La La Land. But when I saw that, it was when it came out. And so I watched it. I brought up my sister with me because I was like, like Whiplash, and this seems more like more of a love story, so thought it'd be something she'd be into, and we both went and saw it, and we both liked it. And then, but that was well before any of the hype or any of the bullshit between that and Moonlight, or before any of that happened. So I could just watch La La Land on its own merits. I didn't get that chance with Moonlight, because by the time Moonlight came out, it just had all this baggage. It had to be the best movie ever made. If you like it, you're the greatest person in the world. If you hate it, you're a complete racist and homophobe. Like it just had like all this baggage stuff piled on. Yeah, it had all this baggage that the movie doesn't deserve.
No,
no movie. But I mean, it was the time I watched it. So yeah, I think I think I deserve to give this one another shot. But yeah, my first reaction to it wasn't a good one, and I don't think that has anything to do with the movie itself. I think it has to do with everything going on around the movie.
Well, to your point, Eric, I think the first time when I saw Moonlight, I was saying probably the same thing. What's all the fuss about? I was expecting something as big as La La Land.
Right.
And a weird thing happened, and it sort of dovetails to what Bruce was saying. I initially thought, okay, overrated. Movie's overrated. Moonlight, overrated. And then as the days went by, I started thinking about the story, and it quietly, to your point, Bruce, it just took a hold of me. Just everything those three different stories. I was thinking initially, this movie's just disjointed, doesn't really tell a full story. But no, it's, Barry Jenkins, what he does as a filmmaker, he lets you fill in those gaps as a viewer. He doesn't insult your intelligence. He gives you a specific point of view, specific piece of that life. And he lets you participate in his movies. And I think if Beale Street Could Talk is another movie that I ended up appreciating Moonlight as the years went by after watching If Beale Street Could Talk. And that movie really hit me right where it counted. So I just think Barry Jenkins is, to your point, Eric, I think it's unfair that when people say if you don't like Barry Jenkins' stuff, then you're racist or you don't know what's going on. But I think as a filmmaker, what I love about his stuff is, Bruce said it perfectly, it's so quiet. His movies are lyrical. And it's hard to be lyrical and poetic without getting to the point of saccharine.
Right.
And he does. This feels like both those movies feel like Barry Jenkins literally just opened a blood vessel and let it slowly come out. It's literally his blood, sweat. I mean, Anderson Cowan is our buddy. When I keep on telling him, whether you love groupers or not, it's Anderson Cowan up on the screen. Same thing with guys like Barry Jenkins or Jules Dassin. That's why we love filmmakers like those guys.
I should also say, like, the conversation of if you don't like X, then you're Y. That doesn't come from like the people that go on CinemAddicts, for example, the Facebook page. You listening, or watching this podcast right here, I will include you. Yeah. That these are not film fans. These are the type of people that follow their political team.
Yes.
and use something that's in, like,
they use art as like a tool or like a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God, it's like the last movie they saw was a Star Wars or MCU movie, and the last one they saw before that was the Star Wars MCU movie that came out the year before.
Right.
Like they're not film fans. So
worse yet, they haven't seen Gremlins, probably Gremlins or Spirit.
Yeah.
Any of those
movies. They saw Gremlins, and they also agree that it's the greatest movie ever made. But it's just when because I got in arguments, like someone was talking to me about La La Land. It's like Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you do realize that La La Land was an indie movie. It just happened to get bigger later on. It's like, no, Hollywood made that movie and blah, blah, blah. They do this. It's like, no, Damien Chazelle wrote the movie before, like, and I get into these arguments with people that clearly don't know what they're talking about, and it just makes me want to pull my hair out.
Plus, does it matter? I mean, a good movie that you like is a good movie that you like.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was made by Spielberg or if it was made by tiny little first-time director.
And then to their detriment, the movie I was supposed to like, that they wanted me to like, Moonlight, I ended up not liking it, probably because of them souring it, because they don't know what the what they're talking about. And
but
just,
also,
I don't want to choke people sometimes.
but everyone has their taste too. Honestly,
Sure.
you know, it doesn't mean anything. Not in a perfect example, like to me, like First Cow it does similar things to Moonlight in a different way, but that super quiet, super. I mean, that's not everyone's cup of tea. That's just not. You know, some people like want their relationship, you know, friendship movies to not be that, which is cool. It doesn't. It's not saying anything about you, especially if you like all kinds of movies. You're allowed to not like certain movies too, you know? I mean, the fact that we can love Gremlins and love, I don't know, Evil Dead and then go love Moonlight.
Yeah.
You can like all those kind of movies. Yeah. It's allowed.
Eric, you know,
I'm not racist.
You're not racist.
Oh my God, here it goes again.
You're not racist, and you know what, Eric? If you're not a huge fan of Moonlight, we're not going to hold it against you. You know,
I will give Moonlight another shot though, because the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm actually getting kind of pissed off because if I see Moonlight the same week I saw La La Land, I don't know what I think of the movie. Maybe I saw it, you know, without all that baggage. Maybe I love it. Yeah, maybe I still don't like it. Who knows? But yeah, the idea that a movie gets soured like that, and
it can definitely happen. I mean, I've had that happen with movies. You go back and watch them, and you go like, well, "How did I miss it? Like, why did I hate that?" Sure. Because you saw it in the wrong time, or you just didn't get you right, and vice versa. Sometimes you see something and love it because of the hype, and and you go back and look at it like, oh, ugh.
I remember years ago when I was in college at UCLA reviewing this movie called One False Move, which stars Billy Bob Thornton and Carl Franklin. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, I know this is a good movie, but I'm in a bad mood and I feel like a total DICK right now. And I panned it. I panned One False Move. And my buddy Aaron Dobbs, to this day, we're in our late 40s now, he still gives me ish for panning One False Move. And we're talking about food poisoning. My stomach was really bad while watching David Mamet's Barry Levinson directed film, Wag the Dog. I am sick, and I remember thinking, I know this movie's good, but I'm sick. And I gave that a bad review as well. So I think to Bruce's point, it's just really where you're at. And honestly, Eric, whether or not you like Moonlight, the only thing that matters is if you like The Painted Bird. So let's just make sure.
True. It's a good point.
that's all.
But I would say
we're being selfish now. We're being selfish.
Real quick, when I rewind The Painted Bird, I'm going to talk shit on one of you too.
Oh yeah.
The review isn't even going to be talking about the movie itself. It'll be like, Greg, you son of a bitch.
I think the likelihood is I think the likelihood is you'll probably end up liking it because I mean, you know how it is if you talk anything down too much, your expectations.
Yeah, you anti-moonlighted it for me.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, but I would say you don't watch The Painted Bird until Greg watches Gremlins.
Oh.
No, I want to watch The Painted Bird. So
you don't want to wait that long?
You don't want to wait till my dying day, right?
Actually, I'm kind of scared for Greg to watch Gremlins because, what if he doesn't like it? What do I do? I guess I'll be fine.
I'll still love it. I'm so unprofessional. I try to be professional. The fact that I haven't seen Gremlins, it's a black mark on me. But I know it's horrible. Now we're gonna wrap up with one more round, folks. Bruce and Eric, you guys have one more round to go. So Eric Holmes. We had a good conversation on Moonlight. I really enjoyed that. Oh, before you give me a pick, Eric, I suggest if you ever do see Moonlight or if Beale Street Could Talk, I don't know if you co-sign on this with me, Bruce. I think, for Barry Jenkins, you got to be in that little pocket, that meditative, contemplative pocket when you get into that Barry Jenkins universe. That would be my only tip.
Yeah.
So any other?
Am I up?
Yeah, you're up.
Okay, so I'm going to pull an audible as well.
Oh, cool.
Or maybe we did that on the podcast week. Either way, I was going to do Wages of Fear and kind of Sorcerer, but given the conversation we just had, I think I'll save that for next week, and we'll go with a Wolfgang Peterson movie I saw.
Troy. I love Troy. You start talking about Troy.
Wolfgang Peterson,
Das
1985 movie,
Das Boot?
starring Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr.
Oh, Enemy Mine.
Enemy Mine.
With Chris Wallace special effects.
Oh, wow. Did he do that?
Yes.
I believe. Okay. Well, shit. This just brings everything together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Enemy Mine is. I watched that with the kids because they wanted to watch something, and Brandon's not allowed to watch horror movies anymore, so we can't really. But
did it bring up some awkward questions about where babies come from?
No,
good.
That doesn't get awkward with me. I just talk to them scientifically about it, and they get bored, so it's not that hard.
Okay.
The sperm goes into the ovum until it's. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about, Uncle Eric, and I'm going to go play with something. Okay, you go right ahead. But yeah, it was good watching it with the kids because they were kind of in line with Dennis Quaid's character because it starts off with that cheesy spaceship battle before they crash land on the planet. But they're like I look at Louis Gossett Jr.'s the Drac. I forget what the character's name is. I guess I'll look it up here.
Drac, D-R-A-C. Drac.
Jerry. And so they didn't like him. Yeah, he looks creepy. Oh, what's he gonna do? And so they're rooting for Dennis Quaid. And just as the two characters get to know each other, the kids as they're watching it are kind of, oh yeah, Jerry. He's a good guy, and they're friends. And so it was kind of neat to see him kind of their relationship grow with the character as the movie goes on. That's what movies and stories are supposed to do. But it was just really cool to see him do that in real time, from where he goes from this scary thing to, he's a friend. And then he gives birth, dies, and then now they're just fucking heartbroken. But then he's got a baby, and they're like, oh, it's so cute. And it was just really cool watching them kind of react to the movie.
Well, I didn't see that movie. You just spoiled it for me, Eric. Thank you for that.
Oh no, no, that's kind of part of it. The whole point of it is Dennis. Well, the whole point is Dennis Quaid's character, and Louis Gossett Jr.'s character. They hate each other, and the only reason they hate each other is because they're supposed to hate each other. They're two races or two species are constantly fighting each other, and they don't understand where each other is coming from. And they don't understand one another. They don't really care to learn about one another. And then when they're forced to, help each other, just like anything, you start to, I can't pretend to not know who you are anymore. I can't pretend to keep you at arm's distance, and I can't pretend to hate you anymore. And it still holds up today. I just saw it a couple days ago, and it still holds up. Still a wonderful movie.
Rented it? I'm sorry, you rented it streaming?
It was on the HBO
Max,
the HBO Plus, or one of the HBO, whatever the HBO thing is. We got on the TV downstairs. The space fights are kind of lame, and there's all right, this is pretty good. So there's constantly meteor showers, periodically, to where they have to make a shelter that the meteors won't destroy. And so when the meteors hit, they got the practical explosions. And Brandon's like, "Why are they lighting fireworks?" I'm like, "Those aren't fireworks." It's like, and then they hit again. Like, no, those are firecrackers. So yeah, those parts are a bit special effects in that regard are kind of lame, but the makeup effects are awesome, and the story holds up, and it's just an awesome movie. And I'd probably not be a bad one to show the kids. I think there's some bloody parts here and there, but overall, look, if you're going to take them to see Winter Soldier, you can take them to see this.
Okay, Enemy Mine, 1985, directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and it goes back to our other friend of the CinemAddicts Facebook group, Ryan Rafe. He has told me for years to watch Das Boot, and I still haven't watched Das Boot. I'm gonna
Craig.
Bruce, to your final pick. I remember. Sorry about this, Eric. One night, my mom was on the Criterion Channel, and I said, "Mom, you know my good buddy Eric Holmes. He wanted to see. He tells me Rafifi's really good. Can you just watch it for me? I'm gonna come in and I'll watch it later. Tell me what you think." That was about 6 months ago. So I just want you to say thanks to you. My mom has seen Rafifi, and I still haven't. She says thank you for that recommendation. I will get there. I swear.
Real quick, what does she think of Gremlins?
I'm going to probably put it on right now. And then Scalp Hunters next week. So good old mom. Eventually, I'm going to get there. I promise to get there.
All right, new rule. You can't watch Gremlins until your mom's seen it first.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Okay, Bruce.
You're not allowed until your mom sees it.
So
we're going to wrap
Greg,
wrap up with your – come on, make this a good one. Make this a good –
Well, first of all, I'm going to say the best sneak preview I ever saw in the theaters was Gremlins. So I did see it. The longest movie I've ever seen in the theater was the Das Boot director's cut at over 5 hours.
Oh, whoa. Was it worth it, the 5 hours, Bruce?
It was pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I think it was originally a miniseries. I think that's why. I think they kind of restored it. Anyway, I'm not going to actually review another movie. I'm just going to preview next time. So if anyone wants to hop on board, I want to try to every so often add in, if I get a super special edition DVD of some sort, and I'm going to watch a DVD version of one of my movies, next week, I'm going to definitely be talking about Don't Look Now, Nicholas Roeg. I got the Criterion edition, so it's going to be super cool. If you haven't seen it,
and you're doing that next week?
Yeah.
That's perfect because I was going to watch that anyway.
That's my opening line to whenever I'm on a date, by the way. So that's why I'm still single. That's why I'm still single.
That should be like a little later. Don't look now.
That's why all I do is podcasts with you guys. I have no friends. But okay, I'm so glad you picked that up. Don't look now. Don't look now.
Yeah.
I'm just glad brute force isn't your pickup line.
Right. Eric, you've seen Don't Look Now before a little preview for next week?
No, I haven't, but it's on my list, and now that I know he's doing it next week, I'm definitely hitting that.
I haven't seen it for about 20 years, but I'd be really curious to see what someone with fresh eyes thinks of it. So
double teaser, Eric. Do you like Donald Sutherland?
I do.
If you
really
like, okay. So who doesn't? If you like Donald Sutherland, Eric, and I'm saying this in as serious a tone as possible, watch Don't Look Now and have fun with the first several minutes. Okay, because those first several minutes, you're going to look at Donald Sutherland in a whole different
little
manner.
nip.
No, it's going to be. It will straight hit you right in the soul. So I know Bruce
do not read anything about this movie because it definitely has one of the most WTF final moments of a movie you'll ever seen.
Do not read anything about this, my friend.
Do you see him naked at all? Is what I'm getting at.
You do.
Sweet. That's all I need to know.
Did you know this movie? Okay, this is not spoiling anything. This movie has one of the most noted sex scenes in movie history.
Yeah.
Sex scene or rape scene?
It's a sex scene.
Sex scene.
Okay, that's good.
Not rape.
No. This is Eric. This is not the Painted Bird, man. This is not the Painted Bird. What are you talking about? This is a real movie. It's not one of those. Yeah. No, this is a great choice, Bruce. Great choice.
Interesting.
So yeah, that'll be for next week. Also, I want to plug something that me, Bruce Purkey, Eric Holmes, we're doing another little mini brother-sister type of podcast called Find Your Film. And what we do is we do deep dives on filmmakers. Like, I made that sound like really weird, but we're really filmmaker centric. We're right now, our first episode 0. Hopefully I'll be putting it up the next couple of days. It spotlights William Friedkin. So the first couple of episodes, we're going to spotlight William Friedkin, one of Eric Holmes' favorite filmmakers, and then we'll revolve like we do with Movie Mainline. We revolve choices. So the next choice for the next couple of episodes will be Bruce Purkey. He's going to choose a filmmaker that maybe we'll spotlight for 1 or 2 episodes, and then I'll be the last one, and I'll give my choice. So, and what the goal is, we do these podcasts of these certain films from way back when, like maybe even Don't Look Now down the road. Bruce, down the road, 6 months down the road, who knows if we want to do a podcast on Nicholas Roeg, what a master that guy is. But eventually that will live on a website where you guys, the listeners, can actually look up something like Don't Look Now. Listen to us talking about it, but then maybe we might have old interviews with Nicholas Roeg or Donald Sutherland or really interesting books. And we'll always keep it updated for you film fans to watch and to listen to. Because there's, by the way, Don't Look Now, I've got to find it, Bruce Purkey. I have a little BFI, British Film Institute Classics, that I bought 25 years ago. I was so highly interested in Don't Look Now, so we'll definitely be talking about it next week on Movie Mainline and other stuff. So I have been talking too much. Bruce, you want to say something before we go?
Thanks for checking us out. To listen to more stuff, go check out my YouTube at Rustomeyer, Rustomire.
Yes, and please, I say this seriously. Go check out Bruce Purkey at Rustomeyer, like he said, but go specifically to the Painted Bird review. If you have seen it, I would love a comment thread, whether it be good or bad. I want some really good reactions regarding Bruce Purkey's take on the Painted Bird. Eric Holmes, we're going to lead it out with you. Anything, sage-like wisdom, any kind of advice, insights, writing, life, what do you want to throw it?
I love talking to you guys. I love spending time with you guys. Everyone watching this, all one or two of you or whoever it is. I hope you get something out of this. And yeah, this is fun for me. And I look forward to looking at Donald Sutherland this week as well.
Oh, yes.
His beautiful pasty skin.
His giant, thick
his luscious,
Sutherland
curly locks.
And you know what? This is only a joke that you're only going to get once you see the movie, Eric Holmes. Next week, a triple spoiler, I will be wearing a red raincoat during the taping of Movie Mainline.
Nice. I have no idea what that means.
So, all right, folks. Remember, Don't Look Now. Right now, out on Criterion Collection. If you want to actually listen to us on Movie Mainline, Bruce Purkey will be spearheading that discussion. That's it, folks. Luis Lacau is our fourth member. Check him out on manbitesmedia, Man Bites Film. He does so many podcasts. He's the fourth member of our crew. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Movie Mainline. We will see you next week. Take care, guys.